Okay, welcome to this demonstration of how to include third-party dependencies in your Java project or Java program. I'm in a course called Data Structures and Algorithms in Java, and in that class, the primary IDE that's being used is NetBeans. I've decided not to use an IDE for this course. I will be running everything from the command line, and so I wanted to kind of archive how to include third-party dependencies for future reference, not only for myself, but just to share as well. So to get started, you're going to need to install a Java developer kit of some kind. I'm using JDK version 18.0.2, which you can pick up from the Oracle website. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll try to include any links that I'm using in the video description, or at least in the comments. So here is oracle.com Java Technologies downloads JDK-Windows, 18-Windows. So I downloaded the installer and walked through the steps. There is a guide of how to install these, to install JDK on your Windows machine, that can be found here. And like I said, I'll try to include this link as well. Once you install it, some important things to remember here is the Java command, which is to run your program, and Java C, which is to compile your program, your Java program. You may need to include the full path name, or you can place it into the path variable, this folder Java path, common files, or common program files, common files, Oracle Java path. And these executables will be included for the command line. And then another place that or path you want to remember is the library path that's in program files Java JDK-18.0.2 lib or library. This is where I place a lot of my jar files that I want to use, or any that I create for later projects, for other projects. And then one more path that is important, or at least useful to remember, is the binary path. This is where a lot of other executables live. So for example, the jar command we will be using to create a jar file lives here. So you have to include that in the path variable as well. Okay, so we do need to have a third-party dependency to actually include. And so I've decided to write a program that will parse JSON taken from an API endpoint. So to get started, we'll go ahead and this website here, geeksforgeeks.org, parse-json-java, has a Maven repository or repository link. So click on that link there. I'll try to include this link as well. It has, I went over to files, view all. And the jar file that we'll be using with the class objects that we'll need is JSON-simple-1.1.1.jar. Okay, if I click on this, it will download it to my downloads folder. That's not where I want it to live. I could just copy it into the folder using File Explorer. However, what I would like to do is utilize the curl command in the command line. So I'll copy this link address and I'll place it in Notepad on the clipboard here, because we will need this later in our program or our project. So I'll try to include this link as well. So this will download, we'll use the curl command to download this to a specific place actually in the library folder of our project. And then another link that we'll need is this API coindesk.com current price Bitcoin.json. So what this does is returns a payload that has the current price of Bitcoin in US dollars, British pounds, and euros. So every time I refresh that, it'll give me the current price at that time. If you notice the UTC time changes here, should change. Let's see. That's a correct link. Yep. So 38, 39. So every minute it should update there. Okay. And so we'll use this as well to create a JSON file that will then read from our program and then parse using those JSON-simple classes. So we'll take this link and save it for later. All right, so now that we have the links that we'll need and JDK is installed and we're ready to go, let's go ahead and open up a command prompt. So I'm going to let me go ahead and change the color just for ease of viewing here. The clear command will clear the slate. So you want to change directories in the cd command over and move over to your desktop or whatever folder you wish to place this project in. And then we're going to use the mkdir. If you need to know any information about a specific command, you can always refer to the man pages, and you can read up on different flags that are used and things of that nature. Just press Q to quit. So let's use mkdir to create a project folder. So I'm just going to call my project CoinDesk. Use the list command, and we'll see that just zoom out a little bit. CoinDesk was created. So let me go ahead and change directory to CoinDesk, and nothing lives there. Okay. So let's use the mkdir to create our project folders. So we'll do source. Now for Windows, you use \. Linux, you use /. And I'll call my app Coin App. And then I want to create a library folder as well. And so there they are. And let's just clear this and use the tree command to see that we do have this subdirectory in the source file or source directory. Okay, so next up is to actually create our main.java. So let's go ahead and use vim src // this is our source file coin app. And then we'll call the file our Java program main.java. Okay. There we go. So now let's put some comments in just to let's go ahead and call this a project. So I'm looking at my notes here. So we'll create a package coin app, and then close, terminate with semicolon. Let me go ahead and put a comment on Java coin program. Or you could say, programmer. Okay. And so then, so this is a user-defined package. We'll call it coin app. This is where our classes are going to live, and we'll use that to create our jar file, which we'll see here in a little bit. We're going to need to import a couple of things. Let's go ahead and import quite a few things here. So we'll need to import a file, input output. So java.io file. We need to include, if there's any errors, we can always correct them later. I got notes over here that I'm referring to. So that file put stream, we're going to need that. I actually wrote this program already. This is just me. I wanted to make sure everything worked before I actually demonstrated it. So import. We'll also see how to take our commands that we're going to use to compile and run this program. We'll need some iterators as well. We'll actually put those in a batch script and use those. So until now, this is where we're going to include. So we're actually going to get an error when we first compile this until we actually bring in our jar file, our third-party dependency. These are our third-party dependencies. Maybe I should make a comment. And we'll include everything from the parser. That read right? Should have. Okay, so we'll create a public class, which is called main. This is the file. Then we'll do our main method here, or main method, public class, static, public static void. Anything. And then I think that the one of the methods that we're using will have to throw an exception. Just double check. I forget which one it is. If I leave this out, it should tell me. We'll leave this out for now, but you can see. I always like to put an main class here just for myself. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure that the program compiles first. So let's do a quick low. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's see. Zoom out a little bit. Okay, escape. So then colon W is going to save that file as main.java. Okay. And we'll do, I believe it's colon QA to exit. So let's go ahead and make sure that exits. That our actual file saved. Yep, it did. Okay, good. And quit. I'm going to leave this open so we can actually see some of the things change as we use it. I think I'm still in. I think it's because I was expanding it that I'm not seeing what's happening next. So. And there's our main project folder there, our main program. Include file name. Yep, and looks like everything that we typed in, it's synced. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run the program. So what's going to happen is we're actually going to get a, so if we did, let's say we run the path command. So here's everything that is in my path. You can see down here that, let me go ahead and just type in jar. So jar is not recognized, right? So we're actually going to need that. So what I want to do is take the path. Okay, I'm going to copy all this. Okay, go to my notepad. And then I'm going to append using colon. So Linux will use colon, this uses semicolon, the path to where the jar file lives, which is in the binary folder or jar executable. So I'll copy that. And I can include the jar file here. So I don't want to save. Cancel. So let me copy all this back again. And then I'll type path and then I'll include that. And now it should have the path for the binary folder here in the Java JDK. So let me go ahead and type jar again and it should recognize. See, now it gives me some usage. I can use -- help to get how to use the jar command. So let's also make sure that the Java command is recognized, which it is, and then Java compile, and it is. Okay, so now let's go ahead and compile our program. So Java, I think it's going to be source. Let's see. Source, so we want to create our classes. So -d, since we have a user-defined package, which is the coin app, if you remember from the top of the program, -d, and then we'll have we'll save it in the classes folder or directory, and then the class path. So we actually don't have a jar file. We have not saved that in our project folder yet. So let's leave that out for now. And then let's go ahead and compile our source main.java. So coin app main.java. So we should get an error, and because it does not recognize the JSON array, JSON object, and parser packages. So we'll have to go ahead and save that those third-party dependencies into our library folder. So let's go ahead and list this here. So what we'll do is we'll use curl silent, and then we'll include the actual URL for the repository. And if you remember, I saved it here. So let's take this, copy it to our clipboard, paste it in, and then we'll save it output to an actual file. We'll just call this JSON Simple instead of the version. I'll move that out. .jar. Okay, so now if I list the library, I should have saved the library. So let me go ahead and move that over. Actually, left one thing out. So it's saved it in the current path. I want to save it to the library folder. So let me go ahead and let me see if I can move it. Okay, that was successful. And then if I lib, so there it is, right? So what I should have done for the original command is I should have used included the lib in the path here. Okay. If you want, I can do that. Let me just go ahead and remove that from the So now it's been deleted, so let's go ahead and rerun the curl command. But this time we'll include the path for the library. So now we have our JSON-simple. Now if we recompile the program, we're going to need to include those that jar file for our class path. So -cp lib Okay. And let's go and look at our classes folder. I probably should have deleted this first, actually. It may not be a problem, but I just wanted to check. Oops. There's the class. So let me actually let's just compile and see what happens. That I think I'm going to delete that. So oh, it did compile successfully. Okay, good. So let's go to run the program. So Java, and we'll have to include our class path for the third-party dependency. So that's the coin app. Lib Java -cp. Might get an error as well for this. Okay. Yep, could not find the main class. So what we'll have to do is create the jar file. So let's go ahead and from the beginning. Let's start. Let's clear everything. So we'll do remove. Let's do remove -f and actually rf because we want to include subject routes. Rf classes and everything that's there. Okay. So now if I list classes, nothing lives there anymore. And what we'll do is clear this. So let's compile the program, or let's create. Since we already have in our library folder, we have our JSON-simple. This is where those dependencies live for the simple JSON package, JSON.simple package. We'll create our jar file, so we'll just use the jar command --create --file, and then we're gonna save it in our library folder. We're gonna call it coin app.jar, and then one thing here. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile first, create our classes, and then we'll create the actual jar file. So Java compile. And let's go ahead and see if our classes, we have our coin app package, user-defined package there. Okay. So now we can create our jar file. C classes in the directory. So let's see, is that everything? Yep. And then if we list our library, we should have a coin app .jar file. So now, when we run the program, we'll need to include the jar file that we just created in the class path. So -cp. Let me just, I want to look at one thing here. So jar -help -c, change the specified directory, include the following file. So we're effectively including the classes for that user-defined package in that jar file, okay, that we created, the coin app.jar. Because that's what the -c did. Took the user-defined package, saved it into the jar. All right, so now we'll run the program -class path, and we'll include both of them. So it'll be lib coin app.jar, and then let's see, coinhead.jar, and then semicolon because it's Windows, lib /JSON simple .jar. Looks good. And then coin app hello. So we get our hello. So the program compiled and run. Even though we didn't use those dependencies, we did import them, those packages. And so the program, Java didn't know where they were. So we had to use the curl command to bring them into the library folder and then create our own jar file to include in the class path when we actually run the program. So now let's go ahead and modify our program some more to actually use those packages. So what I'm going to do first is, and then after this, we'll create a batch script so we don't have to keep typing everything over and over. But I just wanted to kind of do it manually first, and then we'll go through that. But let's remove, let's clean the slate here. So we'll do rm-f, and we'll remove our coinapp.jar file. Let's remove the existing dependencies. Remove the classes as well. This may or may not be necessary. It's just something I've been doing because I ran into some trouble. Oops, fr. I think it still works because it's two different flags. Rm dash. Okay, that's all we need right now. Let me see. Okay, good. So let's go ahead and go back into our Java program. So that would be source app Java. Okay, here we are. So we don't actually want to use this anymore. Okay. So actually just going to comment it out there. There you go. But so let's actually get into creating our program. So let's go ahead and create a now we did not do this yet. So let me actually exit. Okay. So I don't know what happened last time. I think it's because I was expanding this window is why I couldn't see the actual Vim commands down there. But anyway, we need to create a JSON file. So remember that endpoint that I brought up earlier. So we'll create a JSON file using the curl command. You can do silent. And then we're going to need that link. So let's go ahead and grab that link here. Copy it to our clipboard. Now I'm going to paste it in. There you go. And then let's output that into the current directory because that's where we're actually compiling the program, running the Java program. It will search the current directory. I could include the path, but I'm just not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and create this. We'll call this API payload .json. So what this is going to do is going to store the return set or the return JSON from this API call and store it into this file. Okay. So when I run that, we're going to see an API underscore payload .json created. Let me go ahead and I'll put that to the console and you'll with the cat command, and you'll see that here's the JSON payload, and it has the time, US amount, etc. So we're going to want to use those that simple, the JSON dash simple .jar that packages those packages to parse this JSON array. Okay, so let's go ahead and modify our Java program. Actually, if I just scroll up, I should have it. There it is. Okay, and insert, and then so the first thing we're going to want to do is parse the JSON file. So we're going to parse the parse file API underscore payload. So I'm putting a comment here. We'll update this file every time we run the program. So then I'm going to create an object. I'll call it obj for this example, new JSON parser. Okay, so this is including that parse package there, parser package. Okay. And then parse, call it parse function. We'll do new file reader. That looks good. And if we wanted, we could exit and save to make sure that there aren't any errors, but we'll just continue and then we'll see the list of errors that if we need to make any changes after we compile the program. So let's go ahead and typecast let's create a, so this object is basically going to store the JSON array that's in this file. So let's typecast that to an actual JSON object from this package here. So we'll typecast object to JSON object. And JSON object. So I'm just going to call it Joe. It's typically the standard. If you look at that file, Geeks for Eeks, that's where I got this, example from, and I had to modify it for this specific payload or API return set. They create their own. If you look at it, they create their own, and they stored it in a JSON file. And so I kind of just took reference from there. So Joe, let's see, JSON object. So we cast that. So then let's go ahead and so if you notice in the pull this up here, you have these different key pairs. So here's your key time, and then you have the value, which is this entire array here, and then these key pairs is updated August 30th. If I refresh it, should go to updates the time, ISO, etc. So down here you have disclaimer. So here's a comma here, and then it has disclaimer with the actual disclaimer. This data was taken from CoinDesk Bitprice Index. So the BPI is Bitcoin Price Index, which is right here. Okay, and so this has the US dollar amount. This has the key pairs that we're interested in. Okay, so I'm going to create the an iterator for the BPI. So let's go ahead and get BPI. Do use map called BPI and equals. This is not this you won't find in that website. This is just this is my modified code here. Let's see, map. So we called it the JSON object Joe. So we'll call it Joe dot get the BPI. Okay, and terminate semicolon and see if that's correct. Map BPI Joe dot get. Right. So now let's create an iterator and maps or map entries. Entry. We'll just call it ITR1 API dot set dot iterator. And so now let's go ahead and walk through that iterator. While ITR1 has next. Well, that returns true. Let's see. Let's get a map entry. We'll call this map entry pair, and it will save the next entry in the iterator. And so then before we actually get the US dollar amount and parse that information, let's just make sure that this works and we have the actual Bitcoin price index. So system.out.println, and we'll say pair. So that's the name of that object, that map entry object. Pair dot get key, and then I'll use this formatting here, and then we'll get the value as well. And then one last thing that I wanted to do was we actually could, we wanted to get like the disclaimer. And so we had to use an operator for the Bitcoin price index because it's like another JSON array, but the string, for example, like if we go back and look at here, disclaimer, it just has one value, right? And then a chart name has just Bitcoin, right? So if we wanted to grab those, we could. We would just create a string, and I'll just call this disclaimer equal, and we'll cast the return string, the JSON object Joe, right? Let's go here. What was it? String Joe dot get disclaimer. So that's the name of the key value there. I'm sorry, get the actual key. That's the name of the key. The value is, so here's the disclaimer. The value is this data was converted, this entire string here. And here's the key, and here's the value. Okay. So here we got that. So now we can print that to the console as well. If you wanted to, you could use Notepad++. I'm using Vim just to get some practice with it. So it looks good. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and save the program. Escape. W. So it's written, and let me just actually make sure that our changes were saved. Okay, it looks good. So I used the cat command to output the contents of the main.java file. All right. Okay, so now we probably forgot everything already, but let's go ahead and compile and run. So let me just make sure that we have a fresh state here. Okay, good. Okay, good. So now, first thing that we're going to want to do is let's update that payload, right? Because that was a while ago. So if we list this, we can see that we have our API JSON payload. I think we did that. JSON, we did that a while ago, 2003. Look at refresh 2014. That's about 10 minutes ago. So let's go and just update it real quick. So I'll remove it. Remove this file, API payload. Okay, and then let me go ahead and create it again. So now it should have a more recent Bitcoin price. Okay. So let's go ahead and compile our program. So we'll use the javac dash user-defined package is going to put in the classes folder, and then for a class path, lib, it's going to be JSON Simple. Okay, and then file source coin app Java. See if we got any errors. Okay, so we do have some errors. So this is what I talked about earlier. So remember when I was writing the initial program, I did throws exception. So the file reader, so there's an unreported exception, and so it has to be caught. So we have to include that throws exception after our main class declaration. Okay, and so let's go ahead and do that real quick. And let me just see if classes has anything. No, good. So let's go ahead and in our program. Okay. And over here at the so let me go ahead. I'm going to move this down, and then I'm going to say throw exception. All right, so that should take care of that. Escape. So and there's our throws exception. So I updated. All right, so let's go ahead and recompile. I'm not gonna create a new payload because it's just however long ago. So this excellent is there's some warnings. Okay, so let's go ahead and just take a look at those. So we'll do dash excellent unchecked, and we'll see one warning on the iterator. And let me just do one thing here. Dash help. And excellent. Where is it? So. I forget where that is. I don't think it was depreciated API or anything like it might have been, but I think it's not really a problem right now, so we're not going to worry about it. It's just a warning, and the program is still going to run. So let me just make sure. Yep, so it created their classes. So let's go ahead and create our jar file again. Lib, we'll call this coin app.jar. You call it anything you want. And then, take the classes in the classes folder. So now we can run the program, and we should get the Bitcoin price index and its values after we run this. If you go back and look here, what we're expecting to receive output to the terminal is this here, this entire highlighted array. So it'd be BPI, USD, the values, GP, the British euros, and then our British pounds, and then the euros. I think it's going to do it in reverse order. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look. So Java class path is going to be all right, and also the disclaimer. So that's exactly what we were expecting. So let's go ahead and remove um, the classes in the jar file and the API payload. I'm gonna get a new updated one. So okay, so now what we want to do is we don't need the whole Bitcoin index. We just want to have the we just want the euro information and price. And let me, it's too late now, but let me go ahead and, yeah, we'll just do that. So Vim, well, so if you, if it wasn't clear, what's happening is if I were to put like a counter here inside the while loop, right? So let's create a counter so you can see. And then we'll also get rid of this here. We don't need this anymore. Well, you know what? Let's just leave it. All right, so now pull this back. Count plus. So what's going to happen is as it loops through, it's just gonna loop. The while loop's gonna iterate. It's gonna go through the iterator. It's gonna be 3 values, and it's gonna have the Bitcoin price index, and then the first value key is USD, and then its information. British pounds, and its information. Euros, and then its information. So let's go ahead and take a look, and you'll see what I mean once I output that. So do we have the payload? Not. So let's go ahead and create a payload. There. So you can see we get our key value, our key. So it's iterating to the VPI index, you get our key, our Bitcoin price index, you get your key, and then this is the value. Key, this is the value. Key, this is the value. And then we don't even have our key for this output. We just took the string, the value. So what we want to do is we want to take this key and print each of these, not in a JSON array, but just as just output to the console. And you'll have symbol, you'll have rate flow, code, rate, description. Okay. So let's get rid of this count. We don't need it anymore. Use the nano. So we want this. So now, how are we going to get those? So if you notice here, we can actually take this key pair and create another map and iterate through that within the while loop. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so let's see. Right. All right. So we're actually going to comment this out. Let's do a new system output here. We'll just output the actual key. Pair dot get key. And then we'll just use colon to kind of, it's just sort of a formatting. Space. So now let's create a new map. We'll just call this Bitcoin instead of Bitcoin price index. We're going to cast as a map pair.get value. Okay, so the get value from this here is going to be stored in a new map, and we'll call it PTC. And what else is missing? I don't think so. Space here. This is just formatting. It's not really important. All right, then, so then we'll create a new iterator of the map entry. And I'm just going to call this one I, and take the map btc.get, just like we did before, entry set dot iterator. Okay. That looks okay. So while I, so while I do the same thing as before. So map dot entry, and we'll create a new pair. So we'll just call this pair P, and we'll take the next value in the iterator, store it in there, P, and then we could just do system.out.print in line. We'll do P.get key. And then let's see, key.get that. And every time we move on to a new key, so that'd be, there's 3 keys, USD, Euro, and euros and British pound, we'll print a new line just for clarity, just so we can see it. Happy with this. If there's any errors, we can correct them. So let's go ahead and get rid of that payload and get a new one. All right, so let's get a new payload. So curl all right, let's compile our program. So no errors, just warnings. There's our JSON Simple parser package there. And here's 2 more packages. Okay. So now let's create our jar file. IDE classes. Looks good. Let's see, looks good. All right, and then looks like we can run it. Let me make sure that our jar file is created. Okay, so let's run it. I'm gonna actually output this to a text file so we can look at it after it's done. Lib. So then and so this is how what our program output, euro key, and then it's values. So each value in the euro key, we had a symbol, rate float, code, rate, description, and then same thing for British pounds, USD, and then the actual disclaimer at the end. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a batch script that can run these commands for us, and we can just double click the batch script and get the current Bitcoin price and run the program and have a nice little output every time, and we'll overwrite that output, and so that shouldn't take long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up I'm going to open up Notepad++ here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, let me just create the file. So save as Java CoinDesk app. And so I'm going to create it here. So I'm doing here, let me just pull this over. So I have Notepad++ open. So I'm creating in my CoinDesk project folder that we're in currently on the command prompt, creating a batch script here. So .bat, and then I'm going to call this run Java etc, or actually coin app if I wanted to. Actually, that'd probably be more appropriate. Okay, so now if I look at the command prompt, there should be a batch script right here. Okay, and here's a CoinDesk. This yep, right here. Okay, so nothing is actually in the JavaScript file or the batch script right now. So let me bring it over here for you. And so I'll write some commands here. So run, there's a comment. So run, pull this up here. Run a Java program. And so I like to do echo off. And just for fun, let's change the color. Let's do OD. So we pro that way it doesn't, I don't confuse it with my existing command prompt. Let's remove any existing dependencies. We'll do so what I like to do is I put pauses and displays so I know what the batch script is doing. So what I'll do is I'll just have like echo moving jars, pause. We'll go ahead and do that. So that way, enter to confirm, I guess I could put there. Moving jars. You actually can press anything, it doesn't have to be enter. And then so rm-f lib \coin app jar, not jars. And then rm moving jars, classes, class objects, definitions. JSON payload. Dash rf. So again. All right, so now that we're cleaned up the project, let's get the current price of Bitcoin. And so then we'll run the curl command silently. I think dash. I think there's a couple other options there. Let me just check. So let me just do something here. I want to check something. So curl. There was a way to like get it to load. I can't remember what that was. I have to find it from an old project. It's not that important. So, there you go. So what that did is instead of, it kind of gave me a status of the endpoint call, which is really fast. But, sometimes if it was hanging, it would just sit here. And so this is like loading bars. And so it completed successfully 100%. And so this payload now has the information that we were calling. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and okay, good. So I think I'm going to go ahead and update the let's see, run coin that batch script that we're working on. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do dash pound dash o and then name of the file. We call the endpoint. Okay, so now curl, and let's go ahead and list, in the current directory that JSON payload to confirm that it was successfully created, and then pause. And so now we can compile the program with the Java dependencies, or the third-party dependencies. Java program. Just put this in here. Okay, so it's going to be Java compile dash B classes. Okay. I could even include a command in here to pull the JSON simple.jar if it doesn't exist. So, if just to just take a step back, everything that we did up to this point could be placed in this batch script. So, for example, creating the project directory, creating the source directory with the main.java, creating the library folders, downloading that JSON-simple.jar from that repository into the library folder can all be done here with a batch script. So if you were to, take this batch script and place it on a whole different directory or some other machine and double click it, it could run and create the whole project folder and then get the current price of Bitcoin for anyone. We don't have to do that, but in theory you could do that. I think I could even write code with it into a main.java if I wanted to. I think, but I'd have to have the code string created or something, or maybe a text file that contains the code or something. That's a whole nother deal, but so it could be done. So a user could just double click the batch script and then everything runs, the application runs without the use of an IDE, without the use of installation. I'm sure there's a lot of things that I'm leaving out that I'm just not aware of. But I've only been programming with this for a very short time. I'm used to C++ and things like that. And, a couple of years ago, I moved away from IDEs and started doing things like scripting like this. And just a lot of creative things you can do. All right. So we are compiling the program. We have our source, coin app. Okay, so now we want to run the program. So backslash. This is where the Java program lives. Backslash main Java. I'm gonna include verbose so that way actually show what's happening. And then if I wanted to, I could log that as well. I'm not going to get into that today. Check or the warnings, or at least list the details of the warnings. And let's see, I did not echo. So let me echo that something here. Compiling the program. Pause. User is, I will do ls classes. All right, save. Now let's let's see what's next. Create the jar files. Okay, so create so here it looks like, so for example, obviously, so everything I just said earlier, let me just take another step back. The user the person who has it on the machine would have to have JDK installed, right? Because it wouldn't recognize this Java command. So the program, this bash script wouldn't run. Maybe it's possible to even install JDK, from the command line. I think there is an instruction set for that. So that's a big project in and of itself. I remember seeing that somewhere. Downloading JDK, you can use the installer, but there's also installing JDK from the command line. There you go. It's right here. So, open MS-DOS prompt, so if you were to, from what I remember, when I run this program, it's not going to recognize where the jar file is unless I create the path name, which I'm not going to do because I think it's going to run from like the administrator. So just be careful with that. Just want to kind of disclaim, you're going to be running from admin, computer admin, but which is not necessarily safe. But I mean, this is my machine, so I'm willing to do it. But what was the one thing I wanted to say? I actually have to specify the path for the jar executable. to create this jar file, right? So instead of just, because earlier, remember when I tried a jar command, it said did not recognize, and I'll leave it out for now so you can see that. So let's see, create jar file. So I can go creating jar file. I did jar. And then lslib to see, confirm that's created, and then pause. Okay, and the final thing is run the program. And I want to output to text. I want to actually see the output because after the program runs, it'll just close. So, and this will overwrite any existing output file, so we don't need to actually remove it. And pause. Okay. So heading back to our folder. Let's go over here to. So let's go ahead and run this batch script. Okay. So as you can see here, it just removed that API payload here, right? Actually, let me go ahead and pull these guys up side by side. So here's our remove the lib file or the jar file from the first run earlier, and then the classes folder as well. Okay. The user-defined packages. So continue. So now I've just created the API payload JSON, JSON. Now it's going to compile the program, invalid flag. It looks like perhaps it doesn't like the verbose. Oh, Jave. I can see the typo right there. So let's go ahead and let's terminate this. So if you didn't catch that, I said Jave. I should have said Java. All right, so let's save that. Okay. So let's try this again. So we'll run this. All right, so you're going to see that this payload is going to be removed. There she goes. Re-added, so it's updated. Let's see, invalid flag, checked. Let's see, what did I mess up this time? Excellent, unchecked. I'm going to put unchecked there. Okay. This. Let's try it again. So it looks like a successful compile. It's listing all, the packages that are being loaded. 2 warnings, which we're aware of. User-defined packages, coin app, right? And so you see the classes folder has been updated. And then, so now let's go ahead and press any key to continue. So now it's saying operable program. So it's listing jar. So jar is not recognized. So this is what I was talking about. So it doesn't recognize jar as an internal command. I would have to include the path for that. I'm not going to do that. So I'll just use the path name directly here. So where's jar? So it'll say .exe. We know where that lives. It's going to be program files, Java binaries. All right, so let's try this again. I'm going to go ahead and pull the output into Notepad. I'm going to click on the eye icon so it'll view it. So it's going to update every time with the new output here. Okay. Let's put that to the side and see what's up. Most people at this point probably say, I'm just going to use an IDE. All right. Okay. And it created the coinapp.jar. And the program compiled successfully and ran and outputted it. In the output, we have our current price of Bitcoin in euros, British pounds, and USD. And I can press any key to quit. And if I wanted to, I could run it again. It should give me a new, if the price has changed, it'll give me the current price. There you go. And so that's it. That's we are done. And if I wanted to save this to share later, I could go back here. Could do it from the command line, but let's just go ahead and use 7-zip, add to archive, and create a project. So there you go. We're done. And that concludes the video here, demonstration. Hope it was informative. Hope it wasn't too long. Thanks for sticking around if you did to watch. I know that I will be referring back to this at a future date if I forget some of these things. So that's all I have. Goodbye and take care.